Well, then we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone. Today is my birthday. And for my birthday, I wanted to talk about compliance specifically for social media. I don't know what that says about me, but I'm very, very excited for this presentation. This is something that has been kind of a personal obsession of mine for the last 3 years because it's always been a huge risk factor for my company. And it's something that I was really worried about. And the only thing that I've discovered going through the DORA exams, going through the DFPI exams for California was that I've never been in any real danger. And part of that was because, yes, I have been very diligent about it and I've done everything right. But I also realized that the regulators really want us to be creating content. We as advisors are these sources of truth, for lack of a better word. And so I always felt really supported. And that's why I want to talk about compliance, because I think it's something that we as advisors are really, really scared of. And it's something that we just aren't quite ready to tackle in many cases. And I'm here to prove to you that it's really easy as long as you're doing it right. So I'm Nate. I'm the founder of Hoskin Capital. I have built Hoskin Capital pretty much entirely from social media without spending a dollar on paid advertising. And at this point, I would say 90% of all of my clients have come from some form of short form video. This has been completely life-changing. It has allowed me as a now 26-year-old to build a firm that usually would not be possible. And it is something that is now available to every kind of advisor and what I would consider to be the number one cutting advantage that any advisor should be creating looking at 2024 and 2025. So I want to preface all of this. I am not a compliance consultant. I am not going to be replacing your CCO or your compliance team if you have one. All of this is just what I have learned from 3 years of creating content and doing so compliantly. So what I'm going to be doing today is just walking you guys through what my process looks like and the things that I've learned along the way from talking to the experts that have helped me do this. So we're going to run through the written policies and procedures that need to be in place. We're going to talk about entanglement and adoption, which are two things that are very, very clear in the SEC and the FINRA rules. Then we're going to talk about records retention and how I do it, because particularly with TikTok, it's pretty challenging. Then we'll talk about testimonials, because I know that this is brand new with the SEC new marketing rule and something that every single advisor should be doing, because now, we get to do it. Every other company has been allowed to do testimonials since the beginning of time, and only now do advisors get to have their clients sing their praises. So absolutely something we need to talk about, and then we'll wrap up with disclosures. First, I want to talk about what is advertising. Pardon me. What is advertising? Because advertising in investment management and advisory in general is a little bit vague. So I want to highlight a couple of very important things. You'll notice on the left side under is strategy, there are these three yellows. One is commentary that includes strategy, an investment thesis that includes strategy, or hypothetical illustrations of performance. You're going to see performance a whole lot as we go through this, because it is probably the most dangerous thing for us to be talking about online. And just to give you guys a general rule, I never talk about performance. I don't talk about performance of specific investments, and I don't talk about the performance of my own strategy. The only time I will disclose that is in a discovery meeting if I am specifically asked for it. You can also see that pre-recorded videos that solicit is advertising. So anything that you would be doing in terms of short form video is considered to be advertising. So we always need to abide by the advertising rules. The same goes with testimonials and endorsements. We do walk a fun line though, and I think this is why the regulators have been so supportive of me creating content, is that general educational material and market commentary, these really are not considered advertising. And most of the content that I create is very general educational material. And this is what I recommend for any advisor, is just educate rather than selling. So you will end up soliciting. We will be in that advertising category, as I mentioned, but pretty much everything should be general educational material. And the rules around it are far less stringent. Also, you can see that it is not hypothetical performance if it is one-on-one correspondence, as long as it is not discussing hypothetical performance, and responses to unsolicited requests. Again, not talking about performance. And so these two are your DMs. This is someone DMing you on Instagram or shooting you a DM on LinkedIn, something like that. As long as you're not discussing performance, these are not considered to be advertising. Your comments, however, the comments that appear on your videos, those are considered in some cases to be testimonials and endorsements. So we're going to need to talk about that. And as we go forward, please feel free to put questions in the chat. We've got Nick sitting over here. He's going to be helping us out and just keeping track of what questions I'm maybe not answering in time. So when we write it down, you guys all have policies and procedures. You have your procedures manual. And so there will need to be specific procedures that are added to that manual when we talk about creating content. And if any of you are writing LinkedIn posts, if maybe you are soliciting on LinkedIn or some other form of social media, you should actually already have these different things. So there should be some sort of review. How are you reviewing your social media usage? There should be a review of the scripts and the posts before they are posted, and there should be a record of that approval. And I'll show you how I do that in a little bit. Then all the business linked social media accounts need to be archived for 5 years, minimum of 3 years within the office of that advisor. So archiving service, we'll talk about which ones, but I'm just going to say that right now I use the XYPN archiving service. And then I also use Sharp Archive. Sharp Archive is what I use to archive TikTok. They're really the only platform I've found that does that with any level of consistency. Then we're going to talk about entanglement and adoption, because you have the written procedures, but entanglement and adoption happen usually accidentally. And you might not think that a couple of these things that you're doing should be controlled by your compliance. Entanglement happens if you are involved in any way in the preparation of that communication. So if you contributed to it, if you helped write it, if you helped distribute it, which can sometimes be considered a repost or a comment, those things can all tangle you up in some sort of content. So this means that you might have someone else creating content that you contributed a little bit to, but if that content is found to be non-compliant, you're going to get tangled up in that. Adoption happens when you explicitly or implicitly endorse the content. So adoption happens when you repost, when you like, or you comment on a post. When you adopt something, you become liable for that content. That means that you are responsible for making sure that it is accurate. And again, if it's found to be non-compliant, you have to answer for that. So what I'm trying to get across with this is that we already do this as advisors. Many of you who are in here probably liked one of my posts, which means that you guys got tangled up in my content. And because I am following all of these rules, I'm not worried about any of you. But that doesn't mean that everyone is as careful as I am. And so we as advisors are already using social media in its most risky fashion. So why not also use social media to build a deep, organic, engaged audience? Here are a couple of examples. Things you might not have thought of that count as entanglement are things like news features. Many of you have contributed to articles and you have your little feature or it's on your press page, something like that. That is considered to be entanglement. The same goes with if you're quoted in a book or perhaps you engage in a speaking event. All of these are things that might entangle you in a piece of content. And then with adoption, liking, commenting, sharing, reposting, the things that we do pretty much every day to engage with other advisors and other people on social media, that is all adoption. Archiving is luckily really easy, but I want to make sure that you guys know that it does not have to be crazy expensive. I went to Smarsh, which is one of the industry standard archiving platforms, and they quoted me $18,000 a year to archive all of my content. You should not be spending $18,000 a year for archiving. Like I would never do that in a million years. And if I saw that as the first introduction to being compliant with content, I probably just wouldn't create any content. So make sure that you are using the free resources or the included resources that you have. Your compliance company, if you use one to outsource, they might have archiving. XYPN has archiving, or you can do something like Sharp Archive, which I use, which I think is like $88 a month. If you do a whole bunch of different channels, it was $88 a month to do YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and my website and my email. It was $88 a month. So this should be a very affordable part of your workflow. And if it is not, it's just going to take a little bit more research. Testimonials. Luckily, I've seen a lot more testimonials on advisor websites, which makes me really happy. Like testimonials we have seen in any business science book that you have read, testimonials work. They are so unbelievably effective. And this is something that we should be having on our websites. We should be sharing with prospects. Like, they're just crazy valuable. The thing is that the SEC new marketing rule prohibits the use of testimonials and endorsements. And I think that's a line item that a lot of people miss when they think about the SEC new marketing rule, because they think, oh, they're finally letting us do testimonials. But I want to make it very clear that they technically prohibit them. So as a baseline, even now, advisors are not allowed to do testimonials unless they satisfy certain disclosure, oversight, and disqualification provisions. This was the thing that allowed it to be possible to post testimonials. But in order to do that, you have to follow these three things. So in general, from a high level, this is what I have learned. You can use testimonials if you tell people how you got those testimonials, you oversee solicitors, and you have written agreements with them. So if you paid someone to do a testimonial, or you paid someone or a company to endorse your firm, there needs to be a written agreement that shows the proof of payment, how that relationship is being handled, and what role the solicitor plays in the firm. The only time you don't have to have this is if they are already an IAR. So if they're already a representative of your firm, you already have a written agreement with them, which will control them as a solicitor. So this is only for third party. Speaking of third party, you or the solicitor cannot be a certain bad actor. And this is kind of a gray zone, at least as far as I can tell, reading through the new marketing rule. I think they just use it as an exclusionary clause so that if there is someone who has been convicted of a felony, has some sort of investment related infraction, they are already disqualified just automatically from taking part in any sort of testimonial or any sort of marketing. So making sure that you do a level of background check, which should absolutely be happening with IARs, but should also be happening with any sort of solicitor that you might use. This is the most important part. Your state has to adopt the SEC new marketing rule if you are not SEC registered. So I'm registered in Colorado. Thankfully, Colorado has registered and adopted the SEC new marketing rule, because if they haven't, I believe Arizona has not. That's the one that I know off the top of my head. And I don't believe Texas has yet either. Then you technically cannot have testimonials because you are controlled by that state. That state still doesn't allow testimonials, right? So those are the most important things to think about. And of course, when in doubt, disclose everything. So these are the disclosures that I keep really close at hand and I make sure are pretty much everywhere. If you go to my website, if you go to my links page, if you go to my testimonials, even if you read the captions of my videos, you will find some sort of disclosure because I want to be really, really careful about this. So there is the general disclosure. You guys have heard this. You've probably written one. This should not be construed as investment advice. This is for educational and informational purposes only. You can probably read the rest of it in your head because we've all seen it so many times. I have this in my link in bio, which means that when you click on my links page on my social media, you'll see my general disclosure right under my call to action, my schedule a call. I also have it in the captions of all of my videos when it fits within the caption requirement. So for example, YouTube, if you're posting on YouTube Shorts, you are limited to 100 characters, which means that you can't put a big disclosure in there. But Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all of these different platforms have 2,000 or even 10,000 character limits in their captions. So I have a very lengthy disclosure in there that says Hoskin Capital is a registered investment advisor. And this is what we do. And this is for informational and educational content only. Then we have recognition and designations. This is something that I think a lot of advisors miss because many of us have awards. I'm part of Investopedia's top 100. I'm actually going to Boston in June to go to the Rising Star Awards for the RIA Institute. These are things that we post and share all the time, but there actually needs to be a disclosure there. There needs to be a bilateral non-endorsement, which means that I don't endorse them, they don't endorse me. And there needs to be a compensation disclosure if you paid for any of that. If you paid to enter, if you paid to apply, if you paid to quote unquote buy that award or that endorsement, it all needs to be disclosed. Finally, with testimonials, I put my testimonial disclosure everywhere because I have my testimonials everywhere. They're on my links page, they're on my homepage, you name it. And in that disclosure, I'm disclosing how I solicited that content. So how did I ask my clients? Did I cherry pick a couple of my favorite clients, or have I allowed every single client to provide a testimonial equally? That's solicitation. Compensation. How are these people being compensated for those testimonials? So for me, I have not compensated for testimonials in any way, but going forward, I will actually be giving people a discount for providing a testimonial. That means that it needs to be in the disclosure. It's allowed. You can give them a free month or you can give them a discount on their AUM fee. Those, as far as I can tell, those are permitted, but it needs to be disclosed. And finally, the selection process, selection and solicitation, I got these kind of mixed up. So solicitation is how did you ask? Did you reach out to them by email? Do you make it available on your website? Like essentially saying who can give you a testimonial? Can only clients give you a testimonial or can anyone? Selection is how did you select them from your clients? So I apologize. I got those two a little bit convoluted. So those are the disclosures. I know that I have been ripping through this because there's a lot that I want to cover today, and I know that we have a limited amount of time. Do we have any questions right now? Do we have anything I should be answering? Do you see anything juicy? Okay. I want to answer the most common one, which is this recorded? Yes, it is absolutely recorded. Afterwards, there will be a landing page and we will share the recording with all of you in a follow-up email. So if any of you have to drop or anything like that, you're going to be able to see the rest of this. I promise. We're not going to leave you hanging if you have to go do something like serve clients, right? And thank you. Thank you for the birthday wishes. All right. So those are your most important components when we are talking about compliance. So I want to go through a couple more of these in depth and give you guys a couple of tips and tricks. I mentioned at the beginning that comments on your videos can be considered to be testimonials. And that is true because technically someone could go into your comments. I've had this happen before, and they can say, I love working with Nate. I would highly recommend engaging him as your financial advisor. So someone essentially left a testimonial on my video, even though I don't have a whole lot of control over that. And so what I have been doing, and I don't know if this is 100% accurate, I just know that I have never gotten in trouble for it, despite having those and disclosing them on these examinations that I've been through, is I have been keeping a record of comments that I would consider to be endorsements or testimonials. So if someone is endorsing my content, if they're saying you should absolutely follow Nate, he has super good information, I will just keep track of when that comment was made and by which tag. That way I just have a running record of where did I get these from and when did they happen? Because at the end of the day, regulators understand that you are not in control of everything. You can't control whether or not someone comments on your posts. That's just how this goes. And so proving that you are keeping track of it and proving that you are being a good, essentially custodian of this content and of your firm, that's really what they're looking for. The other thing I want to highlight is that when we talk about entanglement and adoption, I keep track of these. And these are luckily kept track of in my archiving software. So if I repost something, I have that archived. I have proof that I was a part of that. And I always think twice before I endorse something. And when I'm talking about entanglement and adoption, the thing that I want to get across is that this needs to be a state of mind, because it is not necessarily required that you archive every single time you like or comment on a video or on a post. That's not what the expectation is. Instead, it just needs to be a double check where it's like, okay, I need to understand that if I like this post, I am technically betting my company that it's accurate. Like if another company is sharing their hypothetical performance saying, hey, we beat the S&P 500 by 200 bips for the last 5 years running, I'm going to think twice about liking that post, even if it's someone that I know within my network that I want to congratulate on their success. Because at the end of the day, I don't know what their compliance checks are, right? I don't know if that hypothetical performance is accurate or properly disclosed. And so I don't want myself to get tangled up in something that they might bring on themselves. That's all it is. It is a state of mind change and something to think about. When we talk about archiving, most of us are digital at this point, and you might remember that I mentioned that it needs to be kept within the appropriate office of that investment advisor. This is becoming far more vague as we are working from home, and maybe we have IARs at different offices or they aren't in the branch office, that sort of thing. And so the way that I deal with this is my office is the oversight office for every IAR at Hoskin Capital, which means that they technically have an operational office. That's what's registered on their W-4, their U-4, sorry. But at the end of the day, all of their records are stored with me. And so I have all of our archiving not only in the cloud, but I also have it on a hard drive that lives in my office, so that if I were ever asked, if I had an SEC regulator show up at my door, I would be able to show them that it is stored in quote unquote cold storage at the relevant office of that investment advisor. All right. Before I move on to the next section, I'm going to open it up to any questions just for a couple of seconds if anyone needs anything. What would you guys like to know a little bit more about, or is there anything that I wasn't super clear on as we were going through this? And I don't know, do LinkedIn comments come in through here?
I haven't seen who I'm watching on LinkedIn, so I don't know if we're going to get either.
Oh, okay, that's fine. That works for me. All right, well then I guess I just get to keep cooking, which is my favorite thing to do. All right, so the reason we're sitting here right now is because, as I said at the beginning, making short form content, I believe, is going to be the competitive advantage that sets aside like the best financial advisors over the next 3 years. This is going to be the thing that separates out the people who continue to meet their target audience and actually get new clients from the people who will hopefully fight to build their business to a sustainable organic level and then experience growth through only referrals. And I'm not saying that's a bad way to go at all. That means that you have incredible client service and that this is a really good thing for your firm. But if you can do both, you get to experience that growth and success we want to do as advisors, which is share this information and share this level of financial security with as many people as humanly possible. And that's what has driven myself and Nick over here to put free content in front of over 450 million eyeballs. Like that is just insane. And that might be a slight misrepresentation because it's technically 450 million views. So that means that maybe there's some duplication, but even if it's 50% duplication, that's still 225 million people that we accessed and we actually got to interact with. And I think that's incredible. All right, we've got David You mentioned selection for testimonials has to be disclosed. How do you select testimonials? Do you ever get negative ones, and do you use them too? So when I do testimonials, the way that I do it is I send it out to all of my clients. So I give everyone an equal opportunity to give me a testimonial. And I have not gotten any negative ones yet. And I think that the reason for that is because there's kind of a selection bias where people will leave a testimonial if they're really, really excited or if they're really not pleased. That's why you tend to see, like on Amazon, you see a bunch of 5-star reviews and then you see a bunch of 1-star reviews because people tend to do that from a place of high emotions. So I would recommend sending it out to every client. I think that's a really easy, fair way to do it. And then when dealing with negative ones, I wouldn't put them forward. You are allowed to select the testimonials and say, these are the ones that I would like to display. And I would say that in your disclosure. I would say, hey, these testimonials were selected by our team, which means that they might not be representative of your experience. I think that's a very safe disclosure to give, even if you didn't select the testimonials, even if you were very fairly presenting all of them. Even then, I would still say this might not be reflective of your experience as a client. So that's how I would deal with negative ones. The other thing is that negative testimonials technically count as complaints. And complaints is another thing that you can receive from clients as well as from people who interact with your content. And complaints are something that you need to keep track of. Every advisor, as far as I've been told, needs to be tracking complaints anyways. Like if someone leaves because they weren't pleased with the service, if someone sent you an email and they were really upset, like any sort of complaint just needs to be held on to and cataloged. The way it was explained to me by a former regulator was that you need to have your complaint, you need to have the date of the complaint, and then you need to have a description of how you dealt with it. So how did you reach out to them? How did you make it better for them? And how did you resolve that situation? So I think the bigger thing to think about with negative testimonials is how are you addressing them for that client? And then on the website, yeah, I would put your 5-star reviews. I would put the people who really have had an incredible experience with your content. Getting back into it a little bit. 244 million viewers in the United States watch an average of 17 hours of short form video per week. This is where everyone is. Like, if we want to meet our target audience, whether your target audience is a retiree or someone fresh out of college, you will find them on short form video. And we have seen this over and over and over. Even for me, I make content that is very specifically driven towards younger people and young professionals. And I still have more than 20% of my audience over the age of 55. And so if I was making content about Social Security and about Medicare, you can see how those demographics would shift really significantly. And you can get a lot of eyes on target who are really qualified, really effective clients for you. The other piece is that people use short form video to make buying decisions. Like 96% of consumers prefer to watch short form video to learn about a product or service. This is how people not only are intaking entertainment and learning about people out there, but it's also how they are educating their decisions, which means that short form video is not just a marketing tool. It is also a tool to engage your current clients and to have in a more static format, like on your website. And that's what I love about short form video is that if I make one video, I can use that in 6 different ways. I can put it across 4 platforms. I can send it to my current clients and I can put it on my website. And I put in maybe 20 minutes of effort to create that content. And if you guys want, we'll send you a link to our Getting Started webinar so that we can dive a little bit more in depth on how do you actually turn this into 20 minutes or an hour a week to create a whole bunch of content. What does that actually look like? And the remaining question is, does this actually get results? because it's nice to think, oh, wow, okay, Nate has 250,000 followers, but how does this actually turn into clients? What does this actually look like? And so this is a little snapshot that I took, which is a little outdated. I should update this for our next webinar. But between July 1st and December 31st of 2023, I made 86 videos. And from that, I received 92 created events. This is just a screenshot of my Calendly, which is what I use to book all of my discovery calls. And of those, 74 were completed because we had a couple rescheduled. We had some cancellations, of course. So this averages out to about 3 meetings per week. And because I built so much trust up front and really put myself in front of people and was willing to be vulnerable, every single one of these meetings was easier than any sort of cold outreach I've ever done and closed more than 90% of the time. And when you think about buying leads, if any of you are using Smart Asset or something of that sort, you can think in your head, how much would this have cost? How much would 68 new clients have cost me if I was paying Smart Asset to provide them to me? That is what we're talking about in terms of return on investment for making content. And it is so affordable by comparison to running paid ads or paying for any sort of lead flow. And it's something that lasts forever. I got a discovery call last week from a video that I posted in 2022. I had completely forgotten what the video was about, but that person was really excited about it. So this is something that continues to be evergreen as we go forward. And that is something that I think you just can't find anywhere else. And that's why Nick and I have put in so much time to really take everything that we've learned over the last 7 combined years of creating content and put it in something that you can rip through in less than 3 hours and go straight from, I have no idea how to create content, all the way to, I have posted my first video. And that is what the complete guide to short form video is. This is our viral operating system that allowed us to receive 450 million views and accrue over 2 million followers since 2020. This is not we hope you'll ramp up over the course of 3 years. This is something where we start to see results within a couple of months. And we have a really good example of that on the next slide. So within the course, we help you set up your profiles, which is a surprisingly challenging thing to do, designing your actual studio, getting you the equipment that you need to adequately create content, and really set yourself apart from people who are making it with bad lighting and bad audio. Because at the end of the day, that drives so much of your video's performance. And then we help you get the time down, because that's probably what most of you are thinking is, do I have the time to do this? I'm already running a company and I'm managing my current clients and I'm doing a bunch of outreach. Do I have any room in my day to actually create content? Well, the remaining sections are dedicated to, how do I actually organize my content? How do I ideate and come up with those script ideas? How do I write them in a time efficient fashion? And then how do I record them and get them posted? And right now I'm doing, how many N2 videos did we do? 23? Yeah, I think I did 10 N2 videos, and I also did 7 Hoskin Capital videos this last week, and we cranked them out in less than a day. And so if you want to do something a little bit more sustainable and think about doing 2-3 videos a week, we are talking about an hour of dedicated time per week to make that happen. And if you can build an entirely new core competency for your firm in less than an hour a week, that seems like something that is absolutely worth knowing. And we have the proof in the pudding, because Nick Marino, who kindly enough has allowed us to share his testimonial and also share his story, has been unbelievably successful. We actually just sent out a congratulations to him because he just broke 1,000 followers. And as you can see, he started the course on March 25th. This is not I'll think about doing it and maybe I'll ramp up over the course of 2024. He started it. He completed the course in a day because he was able to, we have created that content in a way that it is so aggregated that you can just rip through it and do it while you're taking the course. And then we continue to add value by doing these coaching calls, because now after the course, we speak the same language. So if we speak the same language, we can talk about how to optimize. And optimizing means reviewing all of your profiles, making sure that your links page looks really good, understanding how that sales funnel operates under the hood after someone interacts with your content, so that when he receives 1,000 followers in less than 2 months, he actually gets clients from that. He actually gets people coming into his firm, because that's really the end goal. He had over 100,000 views and 500 plus followers on April 25th, 1 month after starting the course. And now that it is May 7th, he's already well over 1,000. That's the type of growth that we have seen from this course. That's the type of success that we've been able to make possible for other advisors. The other piece is that we know that this works. And so if you try it and it doesn't meet your expectations in the first 30 days, we'll refund your money. No questions asked, because we want this to be a really successful part of your business. And if it's not, there's no reason you should pay us anything for anything less than success. We've broken it into 3 sections. So for those of you who would just like the course to really get to know us through a couple of coaching calls, you can do the course plus coaching. If you really want to dive in and do more coaching calls and receive the 52-week content calendar, as well as have us write your first couple of scripts, that's going to be the course plus implementation. This is by far where we have seen the most immediate success, or what I would consider to be the highest ROI. Because when we expand the amount of coaching calls that we can have and the amount of value that we can provide, that's where we add those 1-2 percentage points when we think about success. And for all of you advisors, you know that if someone can get an extra 1% on their portfolio, that is a life-changing impact. If we can get someone 1% more effective at creating content, I would argue that that is even more impactful. So today, because you guys are here, we're going to be doing 15% off, right? Did I get that right? We're back here? Okay, good. Just double checking. We're doing 15% off. You guys can scan this QR code up here. I will leave it on the screen so that no one has to consistently move their phone around or anything of that. Or you can go to n2contentmarketing.com/course. Make sure that you put in the promo code, because it will let you buy it full price. And we're not going to complain if that happens, but we want to make sure that you guys get access and you actually get the benefits of being here. All right. That was a lot. I know I threw a lot at you. Who has questions? Am I missing anything? I think I'm good. Let's see. Valentina, I don't know if you're still in here, but thank you for the birthday wishes. Same to you, Melissa. Melissa, do you have any questions? I don't know if you were talking about my attention span, but my attention span is definitely short, to say the least. The promo code is compliance up here. It'll be the full compliance word right there. And when you go to the checkout screen, so if you hit enroll down here with each of the ones that you would choose, it will pop up like this. And before you enter in the discount, you'll just be able to enter in compliance. Absolutely. My pleasure. Any other thoughts? I'm also happy to go back to any of these pages. I can tell you guys a little bit more about the course, or tell you a little bit more about Nick or Sarah. The other thing that I want to highlight here is that for any of you guys who, and watch out, I'm changing the page, but we've still got the QR code down here and we've got it right here. For any of you guys who would maybe like to talk to Nick or Sarah, because I know that it's easy to see testimonials and be like, all right, cool, these guys like the course, whatever. If you would actually like an introduction to them and you would like to ask them what their experience was working with us and going through the course plus implementation, we will happily make that introduction. And so if you guys would like, you can reach out to us. You can put it in the comments here. We'll take your name down and make sure that you guys can actually get in touch with people who have done this and really hold it in your hands before you make a decision. Any recommendations on effective amount of posts per week to drive business? We have found that the minimum effective amount is 2 per week. I think that that is a very, very good place to start, because at the end of the day, if you're not creating short form video right now, you don't know if you like it. You don't know if it fits with your ethos and how you like to share information with people. And so starting with 2 videos is going to be a way to make that sustainable. Nick and I both agree that we would rather see an advisor post 2 videos per week like clockwork for a full year, rather than posting something like 7 videos a week for 2 months and then completely burning out. The long-term, really sustainable approach is going to be better 100% of the time. I have seen my most effective conversions, and now that 3 number is actually pretty understated. I had 6 discovery calls last week and I have another 5 this week. And I've achieved that level of volume by doing 5 videos per week. And it took me a while to get to the point where I could fit that in my schedule, because I'm still very much a solopreneur. I'm wearing all the hats. And so I would say starting with 2, looking at getting up to 5 when your system is really set up and maybe you've outsourced video editing, which is probably the most important thing to outsource as quickly as possible. That will allow you to really ramp up the volume. And then making sure that you take those 2 pieces of content and you post them everywhere. You created the content. There is no reason to not put it on every single platform. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. I'm even posting things on Pinterest, because why not? I already created the content. And so that's the other recommendation, is that if you're going to make 2, you might as well turn it into 8 or 10 touch points with potential clients. All right. Are the 3 coaching calls on the screen in the first course? So the 3 coaching calls are part of the course plus implementation. So if we do the course plus coaching, that's going to be 2 coaching calls, and you won't get the 5 written scripts, and you also won't get the 52-week content calendar. So if you move up to course plus implementation, that's where you get 1 extra coaching call, as well as those other deliverables that I just mentioned. Any other questions on the course? We should do a countdown,
Right.
like the Jeopardy, the do 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 do. All right, I think that's it. We are about at time, so this worked out perfectly. Thank you guys so much for joining. We will send you a follow-up email as long as you RSVP'd and we have that information. You'll get the recording of this webinar. You will also get the recording of our Getting Started webinar. And just as a bonus, for those of you guys who have stuck around for this long, we're also going to include our toolkit. And the toolkit is everything you need to just get started. So we're talking about equipment list. We're talking about our viral formula for writing scripts. And we're also talking about what it actually looks like to edit and produce content. So if you guys are here, I see that there are 18 people, and I can see what the watch time is for all of you. We'll be sending you guys that actual toolkit just for sticking around until the very end.